the guys here have taken the afternoon to be with us today. So my name is Liz Nolan. I worked in the private and the public sector for a very short time, and I've also worked at social enterprise, and I'm particularly interested in innovation and very much so in enterprise, especially with women. So it wasn't by design, pardon the pun, but it's lovely to have two ladies here beside me today as well with Justin. So we have Justin, Vicki, and we've got Louise. So we've got three different sectors here being represented, from education and tourism to travel and transport, and then to fintech. So I'm going to just ask each of the speakers here to give a short outline of their career to date in relation to the project and their enterprise.
Hello, my name is Vicki O'Donnell, and I've got a company called Wilder Wander. We're probably the newest kids on the block, I'd say, looking at the two to my left, have been around a few more years. We have been live on the App Store with Wilder Wander since July of last year, so we're less than a year trading, and we've come through, I guess, lots of the local support, so I think we'll probably talk about those later on as well. So the company that I have was really started on the background that I would have working with data, and especially scientific research data for the environment and for species and for surveys for different companies, using this data, which is now quite open, and creating information products and monetizing those. So at the moment we have an app that we sell to councils or to other landowners, and to encourage people to go outdoors and learn about their environment.
Can you give maybe just a little example of the content of that app, just very briefly, Vicki?
Yeah, so they're all quite different actually. A lot of our tours, so on one app, which is free for an end user, we have different tours and games. So for instance, we worked in Curramore. It was one of our first gigs at the All Together Now festival last year here. So we would have had a tour for everybody that was at the festival to go around and learn about the house and the gardens, as well as a bit of information about the bands that were there at the time. So very much learning about what's living around you, but also the heritage that's around you as well. It's the kind of information that is free to access, but takes a long time to access it, and you have to get it from lots of different places. We bring it together and make it a little bit easier in a kind of a fun, gamified way for people to use for free.
Thanks, Vicki. And we have Louise Burfey from Cyc-Lok.
Hi everyone. The company that I have is called Cyc-Lok Limited, and basically it's the first smart bike parking system on the market, in that we provide lockers, individual lockers, as part of a larger system for corporates or for publicly accessible areas. So shopping centres, universities, colleges, and then large corporates for their staff. So we've created the software and the hardware itself, in that you can pay as you go parking. So it's like park by text, so you only pay for the time that you use. This has kind of grown wings from there, in that now we are looking to put in our systems into cities with electric bikes in the lockers. So basically you will just, as a tourist or as a regular commuter, you can rent an e-bike from a locker for a period of time and only pay for that time and then return it to the locker. And the good thing is that there's a whole dashboard, back-end management system, so you know who's parked where and when, what locker they took their bike from, and there's full transparency and traceability on the bikes as well, because we also have them tracked and traced, and they can be geo-fenced, etc. So the good thing about our product, I suppose, is that we can deploy worldwide. You know, everyone cycles in every city all over the world. We've been really well received in California because they've got the nice sunshine, and they cycle quite a bit, and the Nordic countries as well. So Norway, Finland, Sweden and Denmark. Having a bit of work with Dublin, but we're getting there bit by bit. But yeah, so it's a new product, and thankfully we're the only ones worldwide that have it at the moment, so it's going very well for us.
Well done, Vicki. Just to give the attendees an idea of that product, it's a fine setup. 10 or 13 of them fit into a car park space.
Yeah, so the way we've designed it's very ergonomic. We've won awards for street furniture in Italy, and for innovation and sustainability awards as well. So 12 individual lockers fit into one car parking space.
Fantastic, we'll come back to more shortly. Okay, and we've got Justin Kearns here from Tucr and from Wedding Wallet.
Yeah, so
Justin.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm co-founder of a financial technology company called Tucr. We launched in March 2016, so relatively new kids on the block. What we do is we provide flexible payment options to businesses. So, for example, we work in retail where businesses like jewelers and other types of retailers will provide payment plans to their customers to pay for higher value items and services. We're also working in travel where travel companies will use our group payment side of the product to collect payment from groups of people. So it's super handy if you're going on a group trip to be able to make payment with one link and it'll all reconcile on one invoice and it goes into one bank account. We also do a small bit of work with festivals. People bring people to festivals here in Ireland. And we're just starting to work with other technology companies, powering some of the flexible payment options within their platform. So one of the things we started exploring last year was the wedding market, and we had a concept for Wedding Wallet as a product, and we released it into the market last year. We got, as a test, it went really well, so we decided to reinvest in the product, and we launched it on Valentine's Day. So what Wedding Wallet actually does is we provide couples who are getting married with free tools that they can use to plan their financial side of the wedding. So whether it be a wedding budget, and then they can also manage payments to all their various different wedding suppliers. And then we provide business management tools to the wedding business themselves, so they can send invoices, collect online payment, get contracts signed. And I suppose where the magic kind of happens, we say is we can match couples who have a budget with wedding suppliers that are in their area, within their budget. And so that's kind of where we can bring business to the business that we work with as well. Okay, so that's kind of a bit of a background of what I do. As I said to you earlier, I do a bit of business mentoring as well with the local enterprise office, that sort of stuff. So it's great to be able to see other startups come through and other new kids in the block.
Fantastic, well done. So I guess broadly it might be fair to say that you're representing, say, startup development and maybe scale up, Justin, but given that your startup is, your initial was more established now.
We're still a bootstrap startup. We're still, we're 3 years in, but I would say we're not scale ups just yet. I think there's 4 of us in the company. We're a small company, so we're not scale up yet, but hopefully get to it quite soon.
Okay, and what are the sort of key supports you would each say that were absolutely critical to you in developing and advancing your enterprise? It's probably a very broad question.
I think I've tried to get every support actually. So I started off a different company before I started this company here. I would have got a lot of information from CBIC, from Southeast BIC based down here, were fantastic. I undertook New Frontiers 2, which is a 6-month programme by Enterprise Ireland, which is really good obviously for the information, but fantastic for a startup because you also get a stipend to keep you going for the 6 months. I've got some help off the local enterprise office in Wexford. They've been really, really good to me as well. I'm on a programme called Acorns, which is specifically for rural female entrepreneurs. It's sponsored by the Department of Agriculture. And I found that really useful as well. That actually finishes next week, but it's a programme that continues for people that want to stay in that area. It really is specifically about building your business, getting people employed and making money. It's very, very focused on building your business.
Is that a regional or national initiative?
It's a regional, but I think if you're in a city, you can't apply. I think it's only for people that are in rural areas.
Through the Leader Programme?
No, it's through Department of Agriculture and it's called Acorns. Yeah, it's very, very good. I mean, hundreds of women go through it, all with a very big diversity of businesses as well. There are other supports I've got, I'm sure, as well. Things like innovation vouchers from Enterprise Ireland for building tech and so on. So, yeah.
I've read on your website you made your first pitch 2 years ago around your own idea. And one of my questions I was wondering about, Vicki, was how long that idea was gestating in your own mind and when you knew it was time to bring it to life and take the plunge and outline what you wanted to do in creating Wilder Wander.
Okay, so I guess one actually that I haven't mentioned was Red Lemonade, because down in Kilkenny, I guess Wilder Wander materialised as well. So I had started a company previously, a couple of months before, that I was going to go to New Frontiers and develop. There was a startup weekend, which is the Techstars Bank of Ireland weekend down in Kilkenny, supported by Red Lemonade and others down there. And I went down with an idea that wasn't a business at the time, but it was very much related to what I had done. I'd worked in a university collecting a lot of data, and I knew that data existed, but it wasn't being used, and it's owned by everybody, so it's there to be used and it's standardised. And the idea for Wilder Wander really spun out of that weekend. It was a really good time because I was starting a business, but I saw a potential other business that I would have preferred to build, so I was able to switch quite easily with that.
Okay, so exposure and networking and just connecting and having the conversations.
Absolutely, and I guess what I didn't mention was that I'm based in a co-working space in Gorey called the Hatch Lab, and I think if I wasn't in the Hatch Lab, there's no financial support. It's obviously a cost to be there. But I think if I wasn't there, I wouldn't have known, for instance, about Kilkenny or many of the other supports. So I think that co-working space has been really, really important for the business.
So all of those synergies coming to life. Okay, Louise.
Similar to yourself, Vicki, the local enterprise office. What happened actually is that we ended up going to HBSU with Enterprise Ireland, and then went back down to Leo because there were funding available there. So I think it's important that you know where to go first for your funding and to make sure that you do the right track.
Sorry, just maybe to say HPSU as in high potential startup units with Enterprise Ireland.
Yes, yeah. So I think there's kind of a regular trail that you go on when you're a startup, and I think as long as you have all the information about that and that you know where to go for the funding, innovation vouchers, and then with that comes out the accelerators, which are all brilliant. So different periods of time, might be 6 months, might be 1 day a week for 3 months, or over weekends or whatever. They're fantastic because there's great networking opportunities on those. And I think once you get into the circle, you always kind of bump into each other. And myself and Justin had met originally back in 2015, and we've kind of bumped into each other at certain things along the way. So once you're in that arena, you kind of mix with a lot of other people that are going towards the same supports, and everyone shares information, which is brilliant.
And you're being quite modest, Louise. You haven't mentioned the award you received in Italy for the innovative nature of your own products.
I suppose it's nice to say you have a design award from Italy, the Italians being quite stylish. We've won the Bank of Ireland Awards twice for innovation and sustainability as well, and facility management awards in Dublin and in London. And then last year, it was actually through our Leo office, we won the National Enterprise Awards for innovation. So that was really big for us, and it was great for Laois Leo as well. We were part of Laois. Because to have a company that is up kind of nationally winning an award for them, so they were thrilled, we were thrilled, and there was a great amount of PR out of it as well. So,
and you were also on the New Frontiers for Women course at DCU.
Yeah. So we did the female High Flyers Accelerator program, which was excellent and really well run, and a great mix of businesses, and we still meet up, the 10 women that did my cycle, and we meet up all the time, and we share best practices and knowledge, and so that's really
fantastic.
helpful.
Yeah, really working group.
Yes.
Fantastic. Justin.
Yeah, I guess quite similar path again to the ladies here. I started a New Frontiers program back in 2016. So I hadn't engaged with the local enterprise office at that stage with Tucr. In hindsight, I probably should have, and I would recommend going to your local enterprise office first. Maybe when it's not a harebrained idea, but once you've fleshed it out a bit more and there's a bit more credibility behind it, engage with them early, because there is funding you can tap into for sure. And obviously, New Frontiers program is a 6-month program. You're obliged to give up your job to do that, and that's what I had a digital marketing company that I had to roll backwards onto the program. Got onto it, so you get €15,000 over 6 months, which is great to help you explore your idea, get it to the next stage. I guess then from that we engage with Enterprise Ireland through a competitive start fund. So these competitive start funds, there's a calls every year for different sectors. The first call in fintech we were successful in getting onto, and was a good support structure for ourselves. It's pretty much hands off. Okay, they give you the money, they give you in 2 tranches, and you have to obviously, whatever you put in your business plan, you need to actually make that happen with the funding. Other support structures, I guess the Southeast Vic, definitely, particularly when we were looking at maybe getting some funding in and moving to the next stage. They were pretty helpful with putting the business plan together, were helping us with that process, the pitch, putting us in front of investors, so they were helpful. Even though we didn't take investment, we we were in a position where we could have, and we just didn't for a number of different reasons. But yeah, they were fantastic. I think the network too, of the people around you through whatever program you've been on is very, very helpful. You know, I meet with 4 other business founders every month, once a month. We get together, we meet up, we have a chat and help each other. And that's a support network, that really works, you know.
So you've got the experience now in your second startup, Justin, and you've obviously learned a lot from your earlier days. What would you say are the key obstacles to developing design, tech and innovation enterprises in the Southeast, given that this is the Southeast Expo that we're at today, and the whole focus is about trying to actually drive jobs to improve opportunities for people in the area?
Like, you know, where do you start? It's there's plenty of support there if you want to start a business. There's no doubt about that. But if you want to scale a business, there's plenty of gaps. There's loads of gaps, you know. So, you know, either you go out there and you get funding and you get to the next stage, but if you don't, you have to rely on revenue to drive the next part of your product. And that's what we had to do with Wedding Wallet. It is part of our business. It's not a separate company, and company revenues pay for investment with it. So, yeah, it's cash flow. It's you know, I guess you're in a position where a lot of your customers aren't here as well. And, you know, if you have a business that you want to go international with, being in a city like Dublin does make a difference. You know, so that is an obstacle: is access to customers. So you have to think creativity. Sorry, can't even say the word. But you have to look at different ways of actually getting your business out there, and that's why we said, okay, well, maybe Wedding Wallet was a product for us where there is a lot of business local that we could tap into, and that will help get more revenue into the business. That can help grow other parts of the business. So you have to just think creatively. Sorry, apologies, folks. Been a long day.
It's the afternoon stage.
Yeah.
Everyone needs their coffee at this point. That's okay, no problem, Justin. So the title of this, maybe for all our benefit, is Creating a Tech Hit That Can Sometimes Happen Overnight, but it usually takes great supports, teamwork and a strong voice to getting the show on the road. Louise, we were talking earlier on about, you know, sometimes the disconnect between people driving enterprises, and I came across a great quote by Paddy Cosgrave at the Web Summit, and he was saying, you know, never underestimate the person who's got a rusty pitch and is standing in a 1 metre booth out there and is just wondering maybe what to do. You don't know where that business is going to land 10 years on. And I actually had the opportunity to meet him many years ago when I was involved in a conference on culture in the city with Temple Bar Cultural Trust. And 9 years later, what he has done with Web Summit is pretty extraordinary. So that's a long introduction into asking, what do you think the government or the local agencies really need to understand about driving a tech business? Because I feel there's a huge disconnect.
Policy. Policy, absolutely. It has to start with the policy. In the UK, you know, we've got EEIS here, right? So a person who's PAYE employee can invest in your startup and get up to 40% tax break. The average employee doesn't really know about that, okay? But in the UK, it's up to 70%. So what you find in the UK is there's a lot more access to early stage capital, that you don't have to go through an angel network, you don't have to go through a VC, and you get funded a bit earlier because of your friends and family network, and that doesn't happen here.
Okay.
You know, there's, for various different reasons, a lot of monopoly on the capital in Ireland, but if you change the policy, the younger companies get funded earlier through friends and family, means they're not as desperate for money at a later stage, so they can grow. That's why I think policy has to start with.
Very good.
For me as well, I think, and we came across this a lot because we haven't taken funding yet for our business. Now we will look into it for the end. Well, we are looking into it for the end of this year, and we wanted to get to a certain stage before we started to give away any equity. So we've been keeping it all to ourselves up until now. So we still own 100% of the company, but I think it's knowing when and somebody to sit down with you and say, okay, let's look at where you're at. Let's look at what you've done. Let's look at where you want to be. Okay, I think you should do this, and this. And that the clear advice, because you go to Enterprise Ireland, you don't, you know, they're there to help you get the funding, but you don't really get the advice, am I ready? Is it the right time? Should I wait? Should I go for this first? Should I, you know, and that's why we ended up at HBSU and then we went back to Leo. And we ended up like, you know, getting a full funding that we could get out of a Leo that we would have kind of missed out on had we stayed, at HBSU level. So I think there just needs to be a lot more advice because, you've got so many different people setting up new companies. Maybe they have an engineering background or, they're a tech background, and they maybe don't have the business smarts as such, or they haven't, you end up getting them because you have to, because you know the choice. But, it'd be nice to have a little bit more guidance at the start, I would say.
I think you can look for further integration as well between the likes of New Frontiers and the local enterprise office, because the left hand isn't talking to the right hand. It all comes from the one pot with the funding. But if the local enterprise office is more integrated with the likes of New Frontiers programs and other programs, they're funneling clients onto that program, and then the ones who come off the program and don't get picked up by Enterprise Ireland, the LEO should be engaging with them in a more engaged way. So if it's more integration, I think that hand has been helped throughout the whole process. The left hand is not the right hand. Yeah, sorry.
There's a really good scheme in the US that I think would benefit all of us if it was in Ireland, where a very small percentage of each local authority or county council budget is specifically for local startups. So for instance, yourselves in Naas or in Carlow, wherever you are at the time, might have had a budget that you could actually try and get some money to implement what you had at the time, and the same for yourself and myself. I must say Wexford County Council did support us from the very start, and they have been very good in that way, so it probably worked quite similar for us. But if every local authority or county council knew that they could spend a certain amount of money on startups, it would be really, really good, I think, and that would be great policy.
And is there an angle as well that you've also got some private company involved in that public-private piece with Hatch Lab in terms of sponsoring with Bank of Ireland? Is it Redmond Building Construction and private enterprise? So you've got the benefit of people coming from private enterprise sharing their expertise with you as enterprise founders. You've got a manager who has worked in, I believe, Africa and in America, so he knows the realities of business. He's not just reading a textbook policy. He knows what it is to actually bring a concept to life and to know the struggle it is to market and brand it properly. My reading of the Gorey and the Hatch Lab was there's something that's really meaningful and relevant if I was a startup in that area.
It is absolutely brilliant in that there's somebody sitting to my right who's an app developer, so I can talk to them. I'm not an app developer, but I work with app developers obviously for my own company. But there's graphic designers on the other side, or there's social marketers, and they've all got their own companies within the Hatch Lab. We can just come together to pitch for business if we want to, but we can also obviously just sit down and have a cup of coffee and discuss things. But in addition, then we do have funding agencies coming in and talking to us all the time as well. So in that way, it is superb. It's a really good model.
Brilliant. When John approached me to just moderate here today, I was saying, John, I'm not tech savvy. And he was saying, no, that doesn't matter. You just need to be able to ask relevant questions in terms of business and enterprise. That's wonderful. But one of John's quotes in earlier conversations was about, there's no point in designers talking about design among the design and community all of the time. You've got to get out of that silo and you have to have different conversations. And just recently I was reading, was it the IRDG, a wonderful quote as well, talking about there's any amount of opportunities out there these days, but actually the future is about being able to understand what's meaningful in terms of data and in terms of digitization of data as well. And getting back to your own company then, Una, you worked with data analysis for a number of years, but you would have said that it was very much applied research. So knowing how to bring that data to life to create something absolutely new, like Wilder Wonder. Do you see this being done anywhere else very well in the southeast at the moment, or what could be done to promote more of an awareness around that?
An awareness around data as such?
Around the opportunities that there are in terms of distilling the data in different sectors within the southeast.
I'd say there probably is an awareness within universities and companies that are collecting data. I would imagine you both have very valuable data that you would probably do things with, I would say. I can talk to you, I can buy it off you. But I think people do know the value of data at this stage, and the government, every government agency now has an open data policy, so a lot of their data is open. They have open data hackathons to try and use the data again. Essentially we paid for it already, so it's mostly reusable, and that's on a global scale. It's not just within Ireland. Within the EU there is an open data policy, so there's a lot of information to access it, but I guess it's how to package it to try and make it consumable by somebody afterwards as well is nearly the trick.
I definitely think that, I mean, I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but there just seems to be, when it comes to kind of supports that are out there, they're all in pockets. And just nobody really speaks to each other, you know. And if there was just somebody to kind of connect all of those together and, you know, put it all in one big room for a day or two or whatever, so that you'd have, you know, all the supports in the one place, or that there was a program whereby you start here and then you move here and then you move, and that each agency or accelerator or, you know, government office was aware of, you know, a kind of a map, I suppose, for local companies or for new startups that can kind of guide them in a certain direction. And then you have the choice whether you want to take that or not, but at least it's there for you, you know, the guidance and the connection between all of the supports.
Well, given that the Southeast Regional Enterprise Plan was launched just a few weeks ago, and that one of their 5 key strategies is about engagement, they've said very clearly throughout the plan that they don't view it as a comprehensive document, that they view it very much as dependent on the involvement and the engagement with local enterprises and with local businesses. It would seem that there is a good awareness of that, but as you say, Louise, it's how that conversation actually gets started and how people like yourselves are actually going to take away time from your business to say, you know, you need to put something in place here. There needs to be a mediator, or there needs to be some sort of a forum to try and bring your policy objectives in a way that makes sense and helps to drive business and helps to promote the Southeast as a region for development.
I think it'd be very interesting to see how it's rolled out. That's the key thing, you know. The plan is critical, but it's the rollout is where a lot of things fall apart. And I suppose you can try and manufacture an ecosystem. Organic ecosystems happen. You know, we look for examples in Berlin and Lisbon and Dublin. You know, these things take decades to manifest. You know, is there enough second time founders who have exited successfully in the Southeast who are willing to invest in the next round of startups? Probably not. So, you know, I think it's great to have planning and it's how to be rolled out. And yes, everything's fragmented at the moment. You do have a lot of private initiatives that don't really seem to engage well with the public initiatives. So I think, yeah, I'd be interested to see how it's rolled out, but I think a lot of this is organic as well, and it all comes back to policy. If you get the policy right, you improve what's coming in, the amount of startups that are happening, the amount of startups getting funded, the amount of growth that's in the area, and then 10 years down the road, you have those founders who are exiting and willing to stay in the Southeast and invest the money in the Southeast. So I think it takes a long time, but it'd be interesting to see how things are rolling out.
And what do you think would be the most effective way of influencing that policy?
Yeah, I guess it's got to be through lobbying, you know. It's got to be active groups like the likes of Crystal Valley Tech here. Could be somebody who is a voice for tech in the local region here in Waterford, particularly in the southeast. If their members put together and met with their TDs and said, well, okay, look, this is what we need, you know. This is what we need to happen to have. But again, you know, this is no disrespect to the likes of Crystal Valley Tech. They're very focused on scale-ups, and rightly so, because they need to get talent into the area. But for the earlier stage startups, they are lacking a bit of a voice. So, you know, perhaps it's the likes of Crystal Valley Tech that could maybe give them a voice as well and influence policy.
One of the things that most amazed me was IBEC came out with a study about a year ago saying that looking at Brexit exposed jobs and employment, that in the southeast it was a very high level at 20%, and that the main sectors that were going to be affected would be agri-food and manufacture, and that I think it was only 17% of those people would have a third level qualification. So in terms of further opportunities, it poses a real challenge. In addition to that, the southeast was recognised as having a disparity with the rest of the country. Currently it's 6.6, unemployment nationally is 5.5, and it's 7.7. Then, sorry, have I got that right? Sorry, 6.6 in the Midlands, 7.7 in the southeast. And this is a key challenge for the policymakers of the southeast, of Waterford, Wexford, Carlow, Tipperary and Kilkenny. They're saying, what can they do to attract more high-skilled, higher quality jobs to the southeast?
Well, it's like what we discussed earlier, Liz, is that there's a huge pool of talent, untapped talent there. And I mean, I suppose speaking for my own tribe, but there's a lot of women who would have had extremely highly skilled jobs, and then they settled down and had a family, and didn't want to go back to that big commute to Dublin for the big jobs and the big salaries, or so they have the skills, and it's trying to tap into that talent locally, and it's everywhere. Because a lot of people would have moved out of Dublin to settle down and have their families, and they have the skills. They just can't commit to the kind of 6 o'clock start, school runs and everything else. But that they would, and you have to be very focused, and maybe you're doing a 2 or 3 or 4 day week. You're extremely focused on that, and I think it'd be great for people with good skills to get in with startups, when something is beginning, because that's when it's really exciting, and bring their skills from larger corporations and larger businesses to the smaller startups.
Of the 5 objectives, the other main one that struck me was they enhanced the economic potential of the Southeast to establish as a place of choice for talent and investment. It's a wonderful objective, but making that come to life is going to be, I think, quite a challenge. In one of our earlier discussions this morning, urban planning was mentioned in terms of saying, well, have we got adequate facilities in terms of school, in terms of housing? And, that's identified as, that's going to be a need that requires municipality and local authority getting in behind to bring this strategy to life.
You have to have the infrastructure here to attract, but even to retrain and to encourage people to participate. So, obviously, we've got Rob Cass here, who's highly involved in the North Keys, in Waterford. That project alone, if it reaches its potential, will attract further investment and further talent. But 100% agree with you. We need to look at talent on our doorstep. There's plenty of people that can already have the skills who are here are not being utilised, but there's plenty of talented people who could be retrained as well, and are looking for opportunities, but are looking out there, not seeing those opportunities. Well, if I train in IT, what are my chances of getting a job? Quite strong, but in the job at management, or a job at sales and marketing, that might want to be in those organisations. A lot of tech is here. Is the sales and marketing arms of those businesses not here? Probably not, So if we want to be a tech region, we have to also have the marketing sales aspect of those multinationals, indigenous Irish businesses here as well, not in Dublin or overseas.
Just to mention, you mentioned Crystal Valley Tech, and obviously they're only starting off at the moment, and if people aren't aware of them, they're doing a lot of research on the companies that are already in the area, from Wexford, from Carlow and Kilkenny and Waterford and so on. But the name is getting out there. Up last week at Future Scope, people were mentioning that they heard that this area in Waterford specifically was very much the augmented reality and tech area now, and that people were working here, whether it was remotely or through companies. So the word is kind of getting out that people are and have good jobs outside of Dublin as well, which is great, because it has taken a long time.
Absolutely, very positive. What would you say, Louise? We're on the last minute or two there in terms of attracting people to the Southeast.
Yeah, I'm surprised really that it isn't more successful as a region than it is, because it's got the roads, it's got the colleges and
the lifestyle.
Yeah, it should be, and so we have to look at what's stopping that. Is it the IDA need to make a bigger pitch and a bigger play? That you need to look at kind of what are the local councils doing and what are the IDA doing in the region, because it has a huge amount to offer. So I think there's massive potential here, absolutely.
I think we're on the way to setting up a campaign here.
Just to add a point on that, in terms of, I guess sometimes these strategies you have, this area will be the agri-tech part of Ireland, this area will be the tourism tech part of Ireland. And I think that can be quite limiting, because everybody's got ideas. Everybody wants to be part of the New Frontiers programme, and their idea might be agri-tech, whatever it might be. I think we have to be careful with setting that narrative, okay? Is that, it's not just tech, it's business, and let all business thrive, and not pigeonhole it into one area that will just give funding for that alone. Let's think bigger than that. I think that's the thing. And once you think bigger, things will organically start to go. We have the support structures in place, the plan is rolled out correctly, North Keys happen, we're all millionaires, we're all happy.
I was going to ask for your last line on what inspires you to keep going as enterprise, but that's your,
It's
that's
not,
your
it's
line.
not the money. It's definitely not the money because, like all of us, we could be in industry and probably earn a lot more. Look, it's just, I suppose, it's the passion for being able to get up and set my own day, you know, fix problems. Yeah, I suppose that's kind of being my own business owner. Yeah, stuff that I always wanted to do and keeps me going. And yeah, so far so good.
Louise, what would you say is your inspiration?
It's
so many years
it's
on.
the excitement of it, and well, I work with my husband now. We haven't killed each other yet, but it's the excitement of it. And then when there is a good day, or there's a deal, or you've gotten something across the line, it's so much bigger and better, you know. So. It's well worth it. It's definitely not about the money, that's for sure. It's the one thing that majorly changes when you work for somebody else, as I did work for large corporates for 17 years. It was about your salary and your bonuses and everything else. I was in the sales side of things. But when it's your own business, it's not. It's getting the deal, and it's getting to the next step and making progress that keeps you going.
Would you say that's commonplace for a lot of enterprise people?
Yeah,
that attitude?
Well, people I suppose that I have met along the road that would be in the same position as I am. It changes. I think it's all about making the business better and bigger and making those steps. I think that's what gives you the
Being creative and innovative.
yeah. That's what gives you the will to go on and
Wonderful.
you know makes you want to create something bigger and better and to upskill all the time and learning. That's all you want to do. You know, so that keeps you going.
Vicki, and you? Your inspiration?
Well, the first sale was fantastic, and I think that would keep me going. I've never worked in sales before, so I absolutely love closing a deal.
From data analysis to sales and sale of your own product. Okay. Justin, Vicki, and Louise, thank you so much. I wish you continued success in scaling up and whatever you do with your next part of your
Thank
business.
you. Thank you.